Well, good morning. Thank you for inviting me to talk about something which on the first sight has nothing to do with your topic, because I'm not talking about creative urban regeneration. I'm talking about slow and urban development. And you could say that maybe the creative city fever will be over in 5 years and no funds will be given from the European Union to any creative city project. But maybe there is a next paradigm. When the European Commission has no money left, then they may have a new paradigm which is called the slow city paradigm. And you will see when I will slowly present what I want to say to you in this respect. And I have to tell you, it's not a new thing. Exactly 159 years ago, it's quite a long time, there was a very famous book being published in the United States by Henri Thoreau. And this was called Walden. And in his book, he says, we have to develop a slow society. As you know, 159 years ago, he was not successful to convince the rest of the world. I will not be successful to convince the next society, but maybe it gives you some ideas what to do. So this is briefly my outline. Slow society, what are the theories? And then, of course, I felt forced to talk about what does this have to do with culture and creativity. So what is the role of culture and creativity in a slow society? And then, if there is some time left, I will briefly elaborate how I feel that planning could be done for slow development. Also, I know very well that this is a very marginal opinion. Now, as you know, and you feel it every day, we live in a society obsessed with high speed. Quick decisions, economic growth, we have the mobile phone, we have the iPad. But our common habitat has never been more threatened. Our common future has never been more uncertain. So the need for slowness and reflection has never been greater. And I feel it is time to stop fooling ourselves, time to leave the fast behind, time to relearn, time to care about our fellow humans, time to advance the development of slow technologies in contrast to fast and smart technologies. We have time, we need to advance slow organizations, time to live with the limits of nature, and so on. Acceleration, I feel, is no longer the only option. Speeding up, as I said, mobile phones, emails, containers are all accelerating individual life, business production, and information exchange. New technologies facilitate interregional communal behavior, reduce geographical distances, bring about new lifestyles. Time has become a precious good. That's what we all experience every day. But nevertheless, we eat fast food, we have TGV, we have ICE. We have a growing number of psychiatrists dealing with burnout syndromes. We have a growing number of spas and health facilities to help men and women to survive. So our life is more and more something divided between speeding up and then slowing down. We have a discovery of slowness in novels. We have a growing emergence of opposition to speed. We have an evolution of civic groups promoting slowness. We have a renaissance of and mushrooming of new rural communities. We have opposition against high-speed infrastructure. Think about Stuttgart 21. The rise of local regional food consumption, though even the big chains are now starting to sell bio. We have slow food, of course, slow city movements. We have grassroots initiatives. We have even community currencies who say, oh, we don't want to be dependent upon London. We want to have our own currency. We have the rise of resource-conserving technologies. We have the renaissance of the bicycle, tremendous renaissance of the bicycle. And of course, especially in Germany, we have the rise of the Green Party. 30 years ago, nobody could believe that the Green Party would be the third biggest party in Germany and is stable at this point. We have even a Green Prime Minister in the state of Baden-Württemberg. Would not be possible in Britain, would not be possible in the United States, would not even be possible in France these days. The Japanese are feeling that something is happening. You know, the population of Japan will decline in the next decades from 120 million to 80 million. And the population is aging tremendously. So slow life is becoming something of a vision for a growing number of people in Japan. And they try to promote this. They had a Slow Life Summit in 2003. They tried to convince municipalities to participate. But after the nuclear disaster, I haven't heard much about what's happening there. But it is there, and it will come up again. There's a growing number of theories of slow development. Walden, Henry Thoreau, that was the first one, 159 years ago. We have prosperity without growth, we have sustainable capitalism, we have the urban village theories, la décroissance in France, the Raumpioniere in northern Germany, we have slow food, and a growing movement is the commons, the communalities. Prosperity without growth. I don't go into details given the time period, but I just give you an idea where you can read more about that, what I'm trying to tell you. Sustainable capitalism. You have French literature, you have English literature, you have German literature. Even Jeffrey Sachs is trying to promote something like a slower development, slower economics for a crowded planet. We have the urban village, that's one of my favorites. It's an Italian, Alberto Magnaghi, who wrote this charter for a new municipium. And in this charter for a new municipium, he also promoted, so to say, a slower urban development. And he explained why this should be done. One of the few books which is available in Italian, in French, and in English. Not as known as the Italian is the Raumpioniere, as we say. I did explicitly, deliberately use the German word space pioneers, maybe a little bit misleading. It's a concept which is developed in the context of Eastern German economic development. And it says that what we need and what we observe and we need are people who are pioneers in promoting slower development in rural areas. Rediscover, revitalize forgotten endogenous slow technologies, encourage social networks, initiate self-organizing communities, develop new specific spatial strategies for disadvantaged locations. Unfortunately, the LEADER program is not being followed up anymore by the European Commission. Anticipate social, cultural, economic trends, link global and local dimensions of territorial development in order to avoid that this is just a little bit an utopia of gated rural communities. Strengthen local identities, traditional endogenous strengths. So, and new forms of cooperation between the public sector and the civil society. And this concept says that we need more of these people, and most probably in regions where you have a higher young youth unemployment, and we have a lot of programs to promote startups, then maybe such space pioneers, such Raumpioniere, have a chance to spread the idea of a slower development. More famous, of course, is the Città Slow development. It's coming from Italy. It could only come from Italy, I feel, where you could combine quality of life and food and aesthetics and crafts. And so there is this very famous Città Slow manifesto. The Città Slow movement has even its own university near Torino. And so they say what it stands for quality of life, quality, landscape, innovation, short food chains, social cohesion. So that's, so to say, a propaganda machinery for a slow development. And the most recent theories are those about commons, die Stadt der Kommunisten, not der Kommunisten, but der Kommunisten, is in order to say that we have to come back to some kind of a society where people feel responsible for each other, where the public sector is not just a public sector controlled by video, American CIA and whatever, but that we have other things for quality of life which are important. Now, this is theory. Is there some practice? Yeah, I think there are. Here and there are some things which encourage us. Some have been born out of necessity because there was no economic growth. It would be very difficult to promote slow development in Munich. It would be very difficult to promote slow development in London. But in Saxony-Anhalt, you can do it because it has difficulties. Yeah? It had economic difficulties. So they had what we called an international building exhibition in Saxony-Anhalt in 2010. And they tried to tell these small towns in Saxony-Anhalt who had no future, which is not true, but they felt they had no future, what to do with this new no future syndrome. And they created new hope, new trust in little small projects to promote identity and to promote culture, especially. So one of these projects is, they demolished this socialist housing, and what to do with spaces in between houses. Yeah, why don't you give it to artists? So each city had their own profile, and they developed their own idea. Very interesting. If you want to read more about that, you have 30 centimeters of books about it, which tell you how Saxony-Anhalt tried to develop a slower ideology. Another one is the IBAC. I think in one of your brochures you have mentioned this. In the Lausitz, how to transform a former industrial area into a kind of a slow society. They didn't use this, but what in fact what they did was, so to say, demonstrating that you can do it. A very interesting experiment was done in the context of the Ruhr Cultural Year 2010. The people succeeded to stop the most busy motorway in Germany for one day and to make it a pedestrian and cycle path, and asked the civil society to offer food, tapas and all kinds of things on this. It was a wonderful success. I think 1/3 of the population of the Ruhr went on this day to this big motorway and said, finally the cars are out, now we can use this. And they said they want to do it again, but so far they haven't done it because it was too expensive for the police, of course, I think. And, but nevertheless, it showed that it can be done. And a little recent success story was that recently a lady from the public sector was awarded to become the citizen of the Ruhr because she convinced the Road Transport Authority. And those of you who have ever been dealt with transportation know how difficult it is to communicate with transportation engineers. She has succeeded that the motorway was blocked for 3 months to speed up, on the one side, the construction, but to slow down, so to say, the congestion. And was a very interesting project which came out from this project here. Now, community currencies, you could say that is a nonsense, but even the German Bundesbank studied this, and there are already 16 regions in Germany where regional currencies are currently circulated as a cash substitute for the euro. You would not believe that. And it was a project, like a project from a high school, from a gymnasium, and they said in order to promote local food in order to promote that the money stays as long as possible in a little town. We print our own money. And they can do it legally in Germany because it's just a voucher system. And so you go to the baker and you buy with your voucher, and the baker takes the voucher, and if he needs a piece of meat, he goes to the butcher and takes the voucher, and the butcher takes the beef. So there is a local circulation of community currencies, which is at least an idea to slow down. It makes people thinking. One of these vouchers is the so-called Chiemgauer in Bavaria, where, and you see that's printed, so you have copy machines can do it, on scanners and copy machines can do that. And it was done to promote local economic development and circuits, encourage local shopping, build social capitals, communication, nurture sustainable lifestyles, meet needs which mainstream money does not, and strengthen local identity. So, very little, very tiny success stories. And of course, the slow city, one of the slow cities is nearby. So this slow city movement came out from slow food. And then 80 mayors in Italy thought that would be a good idea, and they started to join and develop this network of Città Slows. And this network is spreading. You would not believe, even in China now there is one slow city. It's not Beijing, it's not Shanghai, of course, yeah? But there is a little village, little small town in China where the mayor says, okay, we do something else. And you have localism in the UK, slow road to nirvana, and you know that is a very dangerous policy. It's misusing the concept of slowness and the concept of localism by strengthening the power of the financial center of London and dissolving the regions and say, okay, each local government can do whatever they want to do. If they have no money, they have no money, like in the Northeast. If they have a lot of money, they can do. So the neoliberal policy of the United Kingdom is trying to promote this at the moment, but I assume the next election will tell them that it should not be done anymore. Slow cities in Italy, I mentioned that already, 80 slow cities in Germany. Very interesting. Most of the slow cities in Germany are in southern Germany. And only one which is not really a slow city is in the north. Some urban sociologists or spatial sociologists may interpret this that in Catholic areas, slowness is better than in Protestant areas. But I have no empirical evidence. I'm living half a year now in a region which is the Uckermark, just got a prize for being a region which considers nature and natural development, slow development as a chance. Some people would say the only chance they have. That is maybe true. And this Uckermark, north of 80 kilometers north of Berlin, is one of the regions with the highest unemployment in Germany. Young people move out, mainly the women move out, the boring men remain there for whatever reasons. Infrastructure is eroding, accessibility is reducing, public services are reduced, no inward investment or very little, no entrepreneurial spirit, deserted villages, but it comes up, rural gentrification. The higher the rents are in Berlin, the more artists and cultural people go there, because there they can have a slower life and a cheaper life. So they do all kinds of things in order to promote slowness, food production, encouraging space pioneers, the Raumpioniere, developing marketing health, revitalizing historical town centers, which was not easy after 40 years of socialism. And they tried to create new identity. They control urban sprawl and protect unique landscape features. 1/3 of the state of Brandenburg is under nature regulation. So, so here you really can travel with a donkey in the landscape, and in this urban competition of our federal government, nachhaltige Tourismus, sustainable tourism regions, The Uckermark recently got the first prize because they say, well, this is a region which is doing things. I hope that the prize will not lead that so many people are coming there and making a fast experience in a slow region. Now, what has culture and creativity to do with the slow society? I had some problems, to be frank, when I prepared for this event here, because I said, well, these are totally two different things. But the more you think about it, the more you can feel, okay, maybe there is something. Just a few observations. There are a growing number of creative workers as a consequence of new value systems of younger generations. Also, I feel occasionally that we are moving towards a decade where we have more artists than consumers. So I wonder who will consume the art and the art services. But maybe that is not so important. Maybe we are consumers and artists at the same time. But there is new disparities or growing disparities between high-end international culture and the local culture. We have, however, and this is a sign which we should keep in mind, we have emerging markets in China, India, and Brazil. Creative cities in China, creative cities in Brazil, creative cities in Japan are big fashion. And so they are promoting the design industries, they are promoting local creative industries that in the end maybe we cannot export what we feel we can export. So culture will be more and more a kind of a regional consumption product. We have the rediscovery of the virtues of the craft. Richard Sennett was already mentioned in my talk before. And as you know, Nürnberg is probably the center of German craft, 500 years of tradition of crafts in this city. And we are reinventing this. And Spain is now looking whether they can develop some strategies and learn from Germany in respect. It does not make sense to send everybody to a university to learn how to design a motor car if you don't have a technician who can build it. So that is probably is changing, but we still have to convince UNESCO that statistics, that, for example, Germany has the lowest number of academics in Europe, but our cars are quite good. And so there is some mismatch between the idea of university education and economic success. And I feel we have to learn from cities like Nuremberg. Yeah. And Richard Sennett reminds us, and I have, in Italy you have similar books about that. But we have an unbalanced expenditure for culture these days. The priority is given to flagship projects. Everybody knows about the Hamburg Opera, Hamburg Philharmonic. We have less for infrastructure, maintenance, and human resources. We have more for events, for big events. And new technologies, of course, influence in cultural production and consumption and mobility patterns. The smart city seems to replace the creative city. What are the challenges? There is a declining regional market for creative products and services. Less money in the hand of households. And if you ask how much money do you spend for culture, I think the normal household in Germany does not spend more than 10% of its income for culture. And the middle class is the worst. Yeah, they think that the public sector should pay everything, but in fact the working class and the unemployed pay for the opera houses of the middle class. There is a growing competition among creative and cultural workers to survive. So if you have a little creative enterprise, you have to really compete with other creative enterprises, and more so. And you have to be available 24 hours, so you have to speed up in order to be competitive. Bartering becomes more popular, or even a necessity again, with implications for consumption expenditure. Some people say we should not buy anymore, we should barter, we should exchange goods. We have so many things which we don't need. We have a steady growth of precarious jobs in the cultural sector. In the city of Berlin, almost 50% of the so-called creative class have a very precarious job. And the carrying capacity for slow locations for cultural products and services is limited. What are the opportunities? Well, you could say the opportunities are time. People, at least at certain time periods of a biography or at certain time periods of a year, you have more time, more opportunities, more pleasure, and better health to do and consume creative work. You do it with your own hands. You are more happy to do that. Even economists are now talking about the happy society. There's more willingness for creative cooperation. Co-op working spaces are coming up. Regional products and services receive more attention. If you look what the metropolitan region of Nürnberg is doing, promoting regional products, quite impressive. And local and regional identity will be strengthened by new orientations for culture initiated by cultural space pioneers. So the space pioneers are, so to say, a very critical group to promote culture and slowness. Maybe I should not go into that detail, but as a planner, I always say how to come from theory to practice. And I have developed a kind of a system where you come from a slow analysis, where you identify strengths, leadership, opportunities, and weaknesses of a location, of a village, of a town, of a small region. And then you develop a strategy, what to do with the potential, how to get leaders to do that, how to maximize opportunities, and how to overcome weaknesses, because we know we have representatives of interest groups and political parties who don't want to have slowness. They want to have economic growth. They say Europe has to be competitive to China and to the United States. Now we are talking about a free trade zone of Europe and the United States. It will speed up, it will not slow down this thing. And so there are so many enemies opposing slow development activities. We have to be aware of them and have to see what kind of strategies we can use to come. So in the end, we have to say, we have to be creative. We need culture for a slow society if you want to have a slow society. And maybe we should not be so pessimistic. One of the German magazines, it's called Landlust. It was developed by a publisher in Münster for agricultural products. And he did not believe that this magazine becomes one of the most successful magazines in Germany. It's read by more people than the Spiegel. It is read by more people than the Zeit. 1.2 million copies every month. And what it says, oh, enjoy your garden, enjoy your local food, and the world is a good world, of course, otherwise you cannot enjoy that. And maybe this gives us some ideas that maybe slow development is not an utopia. Thank you very much.